I'm CK. Tonight we have a small kit, but one that I think will be interesting to a youngster getting into making things and building. It's a little Soundwave water bead levitator. You'll see when we get into it and we put it all together what exactly that means. I think it'll be fun, and I hope you enjoy the video. Little bag full of parts. Made in China, IC Station Levitator Soldering DIY Kit U. New. Got a piece of paper in it. Oh, it doesn't do beads of water. I'll show you in a second. Oop, that's interesting. That just fell out of here. That's a little surface mount chip. I did not know this was a surface mount kit, which is not a big deal. I'm certainly not going to recommend this for somebody's first or second kit. Now this is all in Chinese. I'm sure the build guide that they have a QR code for, I'm sure I can find an English one. But even if I don't, because they've got a good schematic, we can probably figure out what's going on. So we've got this chip, this chip, this chip, and this chip, and we'll get the part numbers and see what they all are. But I think they may all be surface mount, and I do, again, I'm fine with that, but I did not see that listed in the product page. I could have just missed it, and that's my fault. So these are styrofoam beads. We're not going to be levitating water. We're going to be levitating styrofoam beads, I guess. Let's take a look at the circuit boards. There are two of them. These are good quality circuit boards. This is a power one, this is an intermediate one, maybe top or bottom, and this is the main, this is where all the bits go, and they are going to be it's all surface mount. So that's 1, 2, 3 chips, capacitor, resistor, and LED, 2 more resistors, a couple of more caps. So and here's a power connector, and these are where you're going to stack this, I guess. And here is a USB that's coded as USB. I don't know if this is going to have a USB connector with it. I don't know. Let's see what's in the bag, and I'm going to be very careful not to lose the surface mount parts, which seem to be just kind of floating around in the bag. So here's 2 speakers, or ultrasonic speakers. I'm not sure which. We'll have to hear it. I believe they're probably ultrasonic. Comes out of a rangefinder type mechanism. The power connector. Here are our surface mount capacitors. Here are surface mount resistors. Here's one of the chips. I think this is a voltage regulator. I'm not certain. Here are 2 LEDs. Here is, see, this is USB coded. They've included just a bare pin header for that. I probably won't be putting that on. I don't see any reason to put that on. Here are the spacers that we'll build up the stack from. And then we have one more resistor, a 4003. So 40K? Is that what that? I didn't see a 40K on here. Unless I'm reading that wrong. I often have to double magnify. Oh no, that's a 103, so that's a 10K, not a 40K. I was wondering. 40K is a weird resistor kind. Yeah, it's the 10K that goes on inrush. So that's it. So except for it being surface mount, it looks pretty simple and straightforward. So we'll get the soldering iron heated up, and I'll also look up these chips, and then we'll put it all together. And since we're doing surface mount, I'm going to be using my thinnest solder, the .025 MG Chemical solder. They're out of Canada. You can probably find another version. That's just the brand I happen to find, and I like it. So we'll do these. Where are they? Where's my pokey thing? Got 1, 2, 3. We'll do this one first. U2, which is this little fella there. Little tiny guy. I'm going to see if I can zoom in, and when I zoom in like this, I can't, let me see if it's in focus. Yeah, it's in focus. Hopefully I won't get my head in the shot too many times, but that happens when I'm doing surface mount. So I apologize if you see the top of my hat. Now to start, I'm going to take my solder and I'm going to put a little blob of solder on one of the pads. Then I'm going to get my surface mount tweezers. I have a whole video on tweezers. I really highly recommend you get a good set. And by good set, I mean a set from Amazon or AliExpress or eBay. Comes in about $20 or $30, gives you 12 or 14 tweezers of all different tips, and you'll find it very handy. Now, this one I don't have to worry too much. There are no dots that I have to do because there's 3 legs on one side, 2 legs on the other, so it's easy to tell where it goes. I don't have to worry about the orientation being wrong. I don't know if I put enough solder on there. I'm going to get my head in here while I get the part right over the pads. Now that area, that pad that I pre-tinned, I will heat up again and let it cool off. And now the chip is in place. And I have to pick this up and look at it because I really can't see what's going on here very well. This is very small. Now, in this case, sometimes I use extra flux, sometimes I do not. In this case, these pins are so close to each other that I'm going to take some of my Chip Quick flux, which if you do surface mount, I strongly recommend you get some of this stuff. It'll keep the solder from bleeding between pins. Gosh, I put too much on there, but too much is better than too little. Now rotate it around again so I can see it well, and double checking the camera, of course. Now basically by putting a bunch of flux on there, we're acting like a wave solder machine. Oops, golly! I shoved it a little too hard. That one pin wasn't holding it down well enough, or the pin bent. So I shoved it a little bit too hard, but that's okay. Why is my solder not melting? There we go. That's one leg. It's the 2 outside legs. I didn't get the inside leg. I did not. I'll have to get in there and get it again. And as you can see, I use a 30-degree bent tip most of the time, and it's particularly useful when I'm doing surface mount. So all the pins are down and they're not crossed, so there's no solder bleed between the two legs. I do this out this other top one. That's good. And I'm going to redo the first one I did because it swung a little bit, and I'm not sure I had enough solder on it anyway. So we'll just do that right there. And that chip is down. Now we've got U1 and U3 to go. That one and that one. And U1 is the STC 15F101, so that would probably be the microcontroller that's actually doing the work here, if it's an STC chip. But I could be very wrong on that. I don't know my surface mount part numbers as well as I know regular IC parts. But we'll dump it out right there where it bounced onto the board. Let me see if I can see what this part number is. I'm going to take it out of the frame so I can see it. That's upside down. That's right side up. This is S427. Oh, okay, so that's this is U3. This is the on the data sheet it says TC4427. On the chip it appears S4427, but it's all fine for me, and it's got a very small dot on it, and that will go with facing this very small dot. So again, I'm going to wet one pad. That's a lot of solder. I put a lot of solder on that, and the only reason why that's a problem is the chip will be riding high as I first lay it down. Again, double checking to make sure I'm in the frame. I'm sorry I keep saying that, but oh well, you got to put the thing right. Now I lost the dot. Got to rotate this around. Okay. Getting my head in the shot so I can look directly down on it. Okay, it's in place. It's a little crooked, so the pins are a little on this side are a little offset, but I'm sure I can get good conductivity. Grab my pokey thing and some more Chip Quick. Lay it down here. Yeah, sometimes you do surface mount and the pitch on the pins is wider than this. Pitch meaning the distance between the pads, but this one's very close. And if it's a wider pitched chip, I can usually do that without flux because there's enough flux inside this 0.025 inch solder to... Now, should I put that? No, I put the capacitor. See, there's two capacitors here between the chips, but I'm going to do those after I do these legs because I would prefer, because I can manage a capacitor a little better than an IC. And look, I think I got both sides of that at the same time. Oh, that leg is not soldered well. And this, you know, this surface mount soldering can be a little tedious, but it's not actually too bad. And for resistors and capacitors and LEDs, it can actually, I find it's actually a little faster than through hole. I still didn't get that one. It's still up. Now I did finally buy myself a hot air station, so I could use some solder paste and do this, but I'm not going to do that tonight because I have not done that by hand much. So I don't want to, I'll stick with what I know for right now. And on this side, more chip quick. And if you were doing this for a project like a radio or some other thing that you wanted to use a long time, you'd want to wash all this extra flux off after you finish the project. I don't care, so I won't be doing that because this is just a one-off. Once I run this, I won't ever use it again. But you do want to do that because there's a slight, and I emphasize slight, chance that you could develop some corrosion around the flux. That's what folks say. I have projects I've built 30 years ago that I never washed, and I've never experienced corrosion from that, but maybe I've just been lucky. So go ahead, if it's an important project, go ahead and wash your board after you are done. Now those all look good except for one, and I'm going to test it. And it can be challenging to test surface mount connections, but there are ways. So I've got my meter set on continuity, so it'll beep if there is current flow, in other words, complete path. So I'm going to touch the top of this pin, and I'm going to touch the circuit board where the trace is, and it is. So now I know it is soldered well. You may want to get, I was using my general purpose probes. I have very pointy ones in case that were not to work. So that's all the surface mount. Did I miss that pin? Okay, that pin, which is the one I anchored it with, does not seem all that secure. So I will do that again. Let me get a glob of solder off that into my hand. Here we go. Next, we'll do capacitors C2 and C4. And C2 and C4 are, so we've got 4 surface mount caps and 1 electrolytic cap. And just making sure the electrolytic is actually C3. It should be 10 microfarad, which would make sense. And it is 10 microfarad, so we'll deal with that later. So all 1, 2, 3, 4 caps are the same value, which is nice, because I don't have to try and figure out what these caps value is, because I don't have or caps don't have their values printed on them on surface mount. Now I'm going to do C5 first because I already have a dab of solder on there. Take the cap, take my iron, heat that solder up again, drop the cap on it, let it cool. There we go, and I'll do the other side in a minute after I get the other caps on the board. So that's all the caps. Now we've got 4 resistors to do. 3 of them are the same value. That's R1, R3, and R4, and they're 5.1K. So that should be 5.1K, so that should be 512 on the part number. Yep, part number is 512 because they're 5.1, so 5.1K, so the 5 is the 5,000, the 1 is the 100, and the 2 means there are 2 zeros, which makes it 5.1K. Again, I did that very quickly. There are lots of good resources so you can learn how resistors are marked for surface mount. I just did that to demonstrate that it's really easy once you get the hang of it. So it's easier than color bands in some ways because it's just the numbers and you just have to remember basically you just have to remember the number of zeros and then you're golden. Now, I was wrong, that is the glass surface mount parts. We've got the 2 LEDs. And they'll go basically the same way. Oh, I can't tell. I can't really tell. I think the cathode goes on this end. I believe the line is a little thicker on this end on the silk screening, and that's where the cathode will go. Even though I don't know if you'll be able to see this, there's a little green mark on one end of the LED. That's where the cathode is. Now they're both on, and I'm not sure they're completely continuity either. And there goes another thing on the floor. So we'll take our meter, which is still in continuity mode, and touch one end of the pad and the other end of the pad. No, it's not in I put it in microfarad mode. I mean in capacitance mode. There we go. Touch there, and that's lighting up. That's actually not lighting up. That one is, but this one needs a little more solder. So that's how you can use your meter to both check the LED to make sure it's it's not busted, but also make sure you've got the lead fully soldered onto the circuit board. I'll try it again. You just got to make sure you get your right probes. There we go. So that's in there too. Okay, I'm going to back off again. There we go. Because that's all the surface mount. Now we'll do the 10 microfarad cap, and power connector, which seems so massive after all those surface mount components. And as I said, there's also a pin header you can drop in here, but I'm not going to do that. I don't care about that. Okay, so now we're ready to, I will clip the pins on one of these. These are both the same part number, right? Yep, 551B. I'm going to clip one of the leads off one of these because they're going to be on top of this underboard, even though, I don't know, maybe it goes like this. Before I'll go ahead and clip them, never mind. Now we have to figure out how to stack this whole contraption. I think so we're going to put these posts on, and we're going to secure the bottom of that with these little posts. So that is the way that goes, and as you can see, there I'm using the shorter offsets, and that just covers that, which is nice. The other thing you'll see here is there's a circle around these two posts, no circle around those posts. So I'm going to say that the circle goes to the positive side. Well, that's interesting. It's only going to connect, it doesn't have 4 holes, it only has 2 holes. Because you can see on the traces on the back, there's power going to these posts. Then we'll take the taller post, screw that in, maybe. Get the other one on the other side. Now we're not going to just go like that, because obviously, as you can see, that won't work. We've got 2 more tall posts. And then we've got, they give us 4 screws, which is kind of funny. So that, my friends, is that. That's it assembled. And this little gap is where we'll get one of those little styrofoam balls to be suspended, I believe, if we've got it all wired right. Again, I'm only concerned about the speaker wiring. So let me get the camera reconfigured, because if I'm going to be looking at this from the side, we need to see that. So I'll be back in just a second. The schematic shows VCC of 3.3 volts. So I've got one of my little benchtop power supplies set to 3.5. And we'll see, first we'll plug it into the LED. Well, LED 1 came on, or LED 2 came on. I'm going to lean my head in here and hear if I can hear anything. No, it doesn't mean anything. So I'm going to hold it with my hand. But let me just make sure you can see the LED. Yeah. Of course, it's autofocusing stupidly. There we go. Okay, I'm going to take tweezers, grab one of these little beads out. Spin this around a little bit, put it in here. And doesn't do nothing. So that could be a lot of things. I'm going to take this, I'm going to turn the voltage up a little bit more. Oh, now I've got both LEDs lit. I'm going to go up to 5 volts. We'll pretend it's USB, because that may be what it is. So now I've got both LEDs lit, and that's good. Still not getting any levitation action. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to swap, because if I got the polarity on the speakers backwards, that means if I just swap them, then I should be able to, I'm going to disconnect this, just because I don't want to overload things. If I swap the position, then that also swaps the polarity. Connect the power again. Got good power. I'm going to see if I can hear anything again. Nah. No. Actually, it's pushing it away from the center. Oops. Yep, I almost got it. I gotta go clean my tweezers off, just to be sure. It feels like they're a little sticky, a little isopropyl on them. Well, I think it's almost I think it's working. There we go. There. See that? It's working. It is levitating using ultrasonic sound. It's levitating a little piece of styrofoam. Let me zoom all the way in here. That's as far in as it goes. But see that? Pretty neat, isn't it? I mean, obviously it's a little, as you saw, let me drop the light down so you can see it maybe even better. Yeah. Let me grab a toothpick and I'll poke at it a little bit so you can see that it really is. It's just hanging there in midair. So that's pretty neat. I mean, obviously it was a little touchy to get it to find the right spot to actually be levitated at, but now it's levitating. So a good kit if you want to learn surface mount technology. So that's it. A fun little kit if you're learning surface mount, and you can impress your friends with this. Hope you enjoyed the video.